Louise, thank you for taking the time today to talk with me. I am building up a library of stories of people who have experienced escape rooms and what they think about them, how they interact with them, and how it interacts with their lives in general. So, can you give me a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, and we'll get going from there.
Yes, sure. So my name is Louise. Most people call me Weeze. I do a bunch of things, actually. I help to run a nonprofit that helps women of color break into the tech industry. So we offer like cloud practitioner training, Salesforce administrator, things like that. I foster about 12 to 15 dogs per year, and help them with behavioral training. I run a coaching business called The Happiness Latina, and I focus on diagnosing strengths as opposed to disorders. So, positive psychology practitioner, and just help people live north of neutral through that. And then I also work for a tech company in customer success. And so I help a lot of my clients with their third party risk management approach.
That's great. And just for my clarification, the reason I reached out to you is because you had promoted being an escape room enthusiast on your profile. So so I always enjoy seeing that. I think it's interesting to put it in a professional setting. I think there's a lot of good reasons for that, but can you talk to me about what being an escape room enthusiast means to you?
Yes, it simply means I cannot keep myself away from them. Anywhere I go, I find one, and majority of the time, I'm convincing the game masters that I can and am capable of doing them on my own. I don't need anyone else. And so sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but yeah, I think that they are such a good way to like neuroplasticity, basically, right? Like so, like just being involved in different types of puzzles and sometimes realizing that you get stuck in thinking in a certain way and then like sometimes a puzzle reveals like oh my God, like I didn't even like that did not even cross my mind. So just I feel like it's a good brain exercise. um, I want to say I really doubled down after my dad got diagnosed with the Alzheimer's dementia, and so I was trying to find ways to challenge my brain and obviously see about how we could help him as well. um, but yeah, it's, at this point, it's like at least once a month where we're going, finding an escape room. We pay ahead most of the time, actually, like just, and even if like they don't, if we're like, oh, you won't have the new room until like next year, that's fine. We'll pay for it now. So, you know,
So when you go to an escape room, there's obviously escape rooms of all sizes. So some of them have a
sure.
single room, some of them have a dozen rooms, whatever. Do you find yourself if you go to one and you're like, I like this one, I'm just gonna get the rest of them, and we'll work
Yes,
through them or whatever.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very similar to me. I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I'm into this. Let's just do them all. We're close by, whatever. But
Exactly.
the number that you gave me for the amount of escape rooms you've done was pretty high, I'd say. So you want to talk about that, and I have a follow up question once you get to that.
Sure. Yeah, so at this point it's a bit above 110 that I've done across 7 countries. I was pretty much just making sure that I had like at least one a month for the past, 9 years at least. And then in some instances we would do like two a day or three in a weekend. And then I found this I don't know what they would call themselves, but basically it's like a group that travels internationally and then we'll do like 13 or 15 escape rooms within like a weekend. And that is still on my bucket list. I have never been able to make the dates work out effectively, but I was I'm like fascinated. But these are also people who solve them in like less than 28 minutes. Like they like literally like know all the things. And I probably would be considered a novice among them, but I just like the fact that they love it just as much. Like I could like literally the job I have today, they asked me to do a presentation on something I'm passionate about so they could like get my vibe and see if they wanted to hire me. And I did it on escape rooms and I got the job because I was just like I had charts and like, visuals and like everything. I love them so much.
That's awesome. I think I talked to another person recently, and he said he has to drive no shorter than 90 minutes to get to an escape room because he's done all the ones in his area.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's also a challenge for you, having done as many as you've done.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. But luckily in the tri-state area though, they're constantly like retooling a room or even forgot there was one that we just did in Industry City in Brooklyn, and they basically it's the same room, they just converted it into a different theme, but they did switch up some of the puzzles. So even in those instances, I'll still go back and do a room if it's rethemed just to kind of, see like how they've either advanced their technology or, take it from there.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
do you, with that many, you know, 110 is tough to keep all those in your brain, but do you remember your first escape room that you went to?
No,
No.
no, I wish I did. Yeah, no,
So maybe let me ask a different way. What was it about the first escape room that you did, or the first one that you remember, that really you were like, this is it. Like I want
yeah.
this to be part of my life every month. Like what hooked you about that?
I would probably say at the time it was such a novelty. Like I could not believe that this was like a business, like a thing. That I want to say that particular room in general was pretty high tech. I want to say it was one of the rooms at Kamnata Quest in Brooklyn, and they just it like the like how immersive it was. I want to say it was Bullets and Broken Hearts now that I think about it, and it was just such like an immersive like Gotham themed experience that you literally felt like you were in the sewers with the Joker. Like it just like music and they didn't even have actors, but even just like the props were just so like you felt like you were in a movie. And then I just loved the pressure. Like I really loved seeing the timer like going down and like getting like really like just like oh my God, like this has to, like we have to figure this out. And at that time I don't think I realized sometimes it doesn't matter the order that you solve the puzzles, sometimes it really does. Um that think it had like you had to do something with a periodic table, and I was like, oh my God, like I haven't thought about this since like high school. So it challenged my brain and it just really like activated like all of my like I felt like all my cylinders were firing. And that kind of it was like thrilling. Like honestly, it just felt like it was like a and then when you either get like so close that you're like, oh, like I just had one more puzzle, or I think we did actually solve it because it was like a work event maybe. And that feeling was like just so can't recreate that. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like I get it.
Yeah. Immersion is definitely one of those things that I think newer rooms tend to be higher tech. They've got, a lot prettier props, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And yet there are still some that are more like first gen type of puzzles out there that can be equally is fun. When you go to find some escape rooms, are you being in tech and things like that? Do you do any sort of tracking on the games that you go to? Like, do you have a list that you keep, or ones that you did and ones that you didn't do?
I think no. And I really wish that I did because uh but what I do I also happen to be a Yelp elite for the past 10 years, and so I
Yeah.
do chat into places a lot. So in that way, like I have kind of kept a running tab. Um, but then I would forget to write a review on exactly which room I did. So there have been instances where I've shown up and then been like, I've done this already. Like, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, okay, sorry about that. Like yeah, but yeah.
So okay, so you use Yelp. Do you use Yelp to find escape rooms, or is it mostly just like the social kind of checking in, all that kind of stuff?
Honestly, like I'll just Google escape rooms in the area or escape rooms near me and then just see like which ones seem to have the themes that I like. I tend to like I like the ones that are more lighthearted in theme, like the scary ones I'll do if I have to, but I'm not really a big fan of like jump scares and such. Um, but if it has like a really interesting like backstory, I mean like I've probably done at least 20 like pirate themed rooms, right? But
Yeah.
like one of the ones that I found the most impressive was like an 80s themed one, and it's like they used music for Clue, and like it was just so cool, like all the different like nostalgic toys and everything like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's more like I just look for like what are the themes that I feel like I that resonate with me that I would have the most fun in.
Okay.
I think there's that app Morty that some people use as well. Uh,
Yeah.
that I tried for a little bit, but I'm mostly just a Googler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, when I first started, I kind of found Morty and have tracked some of my journey. And I think it's nice for, I think that piece specifically of going like, I went here or I didn't go here or like, those
Yeah.
specific things. You mentioned jump scares and different types of themes, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And you also mentioned live actors. Have you played rooms with live actors?
Yes. Yeah,
And how
it's
do
usually
you?
the pop-up ones, the pop-up like immersive experiences.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, was the question how did I like it?
I was gonna say, yeah, like how'd you feel about live actors in the room?
I think I'm like 50 on it. There are obviously some people who are like very talented theater actors and they like
Mm,
really sold it, and you couldn't even have them like you couldn't even get them to break character like on their like lunch breaks. And as long as you don't feel like they create like a predetermined outcome of a puzzle, then I think it's fine. But I actually prefer it without the live actors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I haven't done one with a live actor in there. I think
Mm.
I typically play with my family,
Yeah.
and my family, especially with scary themes, is not our thing either. We like the lighthearted ones or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen some reviews of escape rooms where you have to sign waivers because they can like it's full physical contact, they can do things to you, and I'm just like, that's just
Nope.
more than I need. I'm already trying to like solve all the puzzles.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but I think like, to that point, it does come back to that immersive element, right? Like if it's part of the story, if it's helping to enrich the world, I think that's kind of an interesting thing. And I think like that's one area where I see a lot of difference in escape rooms is that when you walk in, you're sort of transported to a different place. And
Hmm.
I think that, it's like watching a great movie. You see, you're either really locked in, you forget you're in a movie, you're just there, or you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, it doesn't feel right, and you get pulled out of the experience.
Yeah.
Um, and so like when you go into an escape room, what is it about? I guess what is it about the escape room that stands out to you from like the moment you walk into the door to, I guess, the prior to the escape room? You talked about in your intro that you work with like customer success and things like that. Are I imagine in the escape room industry, it's a kind of a hospitality environment. So what do you recognize kind of coming in the door that escape rooms are doing or not doing, or what sticks out to you about that?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question because I'm like very hypercritical about these things. I think I think escape rooms that have a lobby that is on theme or on brand with the rooms to keep the ambiance and the mystery is really amazing. You can tell when the game master is super into the story or checked out. That's super obvious. And I especially appreciate the game masters who confirm how many escape rooms you've done before, so that way they don't have to go through the whole like don't touch anything with the red dots on it or like don't rip things off the blah blah blah. Like there's just some stuff that's like I know, let's move on, whatever. And then specifically when they're if their rules are too rigid, like for example, where they're like, we only give 3 clues and we never give more than that, we refuse to bend. I don't believe in rules for the sake of rules. So the people who are more flexible and say like, if we notice you struggling, do you want us to step in and do something, or like, do you want to just, you know, do it on your own time and we have no intervention? Like, I really appreciate when they want to understand the nuance of how you really enjoy playing a game. or like with the rules where there's sometimes like everybody in your party has to agree that they want a clue before we'll give you one. Whereas I feel like anytime I go into a room with other people, there always has to be a project manager, and not everybody's working on the same thing at the same time. So if I'm asking for a clue about the combination lock, but they're asking for a clue about the directional lock, give each person what they need at the time that they need it, rather than, being super rigid about like, oh, don't worry about that now, like just focus on that one thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. When you mentioned something there that I sort of picked up on earlier. So you said you often go to escape rooms by yourself to go through a room, even if their minimum is like two people or whatever. I feel like a lot of times those minimums are because like there's like two arms lengths apart that you have to reach together or something. Um,
Exactly.
but but you talked about playing with different people. So do you, when you do play with different people, do you have a group that you play with regularly? Have you played with like in public rooms where it's just they mash you in there with random people, or have you had all those experiences? What do you say about that?
Yeah, it's been all those experiences. I mean, before COVID it was easier to get smushed in a room with strangers, whereas now I think they require just like your party and that's it. With I don't know. It really depends on the level of expertise of the people you're mushed in a room with, and if they're like if the people are kind of just focused on communicating with their own group, but not with like the larger group, then can just become a little infuriating. And there's a meetup group in New York City that sometimes they like once every 3 months they'll like have people jump into a room. So I have had repeat experiences with those people, which are good because they are also like enthusiasts. But most of the time it's either me and my partner, and just us two trying to sort out a room. But I would say at least like a third of the time it's because I travel for work, and if I'm in the area, then I just try to find one that's nearby and I try to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about the escape room tours. I saw one of those recently too, and I was really very intrigued about it too because I mean, who doesn't love traveling? Obviously, if it's, and the one that I saw was specifically focused on the UK, and
Mhm.
so like traveling there, like I haven't been there, so that would be exciting. Plus, seeing how other countries kind of tap into escape rooms, like I think that's an interesting thing as well. And I haven't really played with anybody besides my family. Like we there's four of us, so we fit almost every escape room, so it works. But do you, I'm trying to think, like I guess you've been to escape rooms in other countries. You mentioned that before. Do you
Mhm.
see, what do you see in escape rooms from different countries that are maybe different from here in the States and specifically like New York area?
Uh, it's interesting because a lot of the ones in New York actually were brought over by like there was like a Polish family that opened one like on Pearl Street, I want to say like maybe like 7 years back, or like so I think New York offers the international experience without actually having to go very far, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then in the other countries, it's either like a bespoke like person who had a dream and opened it up and they only have one room or something, or it's like maybe a chain and it just feels a little kind of like rudimentary.
Mm,
Um, but I would say, like they'll have like in London, for example, when I did a couple, it's much more like, Jack the Ripper themed, or like, something that's appropriate to like the
sure.
landscape, or, whatever is relevant for that particular country. In Canada, I was extremely impressed by this guy from China who just decided he wanted to open one up, and the room was like so immersive, and like the even the graphics were like wow, like you could tell like he really really poured a lot of like heart and money into creating one of the better experiences I've ever had. Um, but it had to do with like alchemy and like the past. So I think the country doesn't so much determine it as much as like the person who had the dream to open the room and what they're fascinated in, and whether it's folklore or mythical or, like pirates. um,
Hmm.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite kind of theme that you gravitate towards? I know you mentioned lighter themes, not so much scary, but is there like if I see like a Sherlock Holmes room, I'm definitely going or something like that.
Yeah, anything Agatha Christie I'm fascinated by just because like old school like Orient Express or something, like I think that those are really cool. Um I really like the ones that are like framed as like murder mysteries, kind of like a Clue approach. Um and just like the really techie ones, like the ones where they're just like you will, you know, need to stand in a line, like touching two copper plates, like in order to like turn on a light in the other room or something. So I try not to read too many reviews before I go to one, just because you don't want like God forbid you see a spoiler or something. But yeah, I would say like I like the circus and carnival themes one, but they tend to try to make those ones really scary. So I'll make like an exception for those, just because it's like once in a while it's okay to be freaked out. But for the and then like especially like saw an 80s room, they had a 90s room, and like those like nostalgic ones are always really cool. And then one of the most like really cool ones we did was in Chicago, and that was like a Home Alone themed room, and you had to like shoot a BB gun and the toy soldiers in order for like to the next thing to happen. It was like the coolest, like cool. It was so cool because you're like recreating the movie through the different ops. It was so great. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
You mentioned social media, and one thing as I've been doing this project, looking for escape rooms to talk to, I find that escape rooms themselves don't spend a lot of time on social media,
Yes.
mostly because they don't want to spoil their rooms, like they don't want to give away too much. Is there something you can think of that escape you would like to see escape rooms engage on social media without being spoiler heavy, but something that would get you more interested in maybe going to a specific escape room, or like, I don't know, I guess, is that something that you would look to follow or look to see what people are doing in that way?
Yeah, I guess if there was some sort of rubric that kind of was created that would say like I don't know what the categories would be, but maybe uh like is it heavily um like physical locks, or is it you know uh
Mhm.
I don't know, because there's so many variations that I've seen. Like I've had to
Yeah.
read read a code off of like a rainbow, and or like pull chimes in a certain musical order for something to open.
Mm.
Like, like it's just there's so many variations that it's hard. I imagine it's extremely difficult to not give too much away. Um, and honestly, I feel like the less I know, the better about the
Mm.
room, because then I can just then I don't pre-plan, or I don't try to like think like, oh, okay, like let me anticipate what I'm walking into. I like that it's like it just completely disassociates myself from my real life, and then I like for that hour I'm just solely focused on this task and these puzzles, and
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. I sometimes I'm a film major when I went through college, so like I really like seeing things visually. And
hmm
so one of the things that I see some escape room owners or even like suppliers for their room components is like the building of those things. And I always think that that's really cool behind the scenes kind of stuff.
yeah,
But I hadn't thought about like if you see that, or if you know too much about the story, you try to bring in like preconceived notions that may actually take you, in a worse way than had you just seen it for the first time.
yeah.
And I think a lot of escape rooms, now that I'm thinking about it too, they really try hard not to have people have specific knowledge, but when they come
hmm
into the room, right? Like you talked about the periodic table. I
right.
can imagine what that would be is, ordering in a specific way or something like that, but not in a way that you're like, okay, you have to have memorized the periodic table to get this puzzle, or I talked to somebody else and there was like a baseball themed one, but if you don't
hmm
follow baseball theme, or if you don't follow baseball, you're not stuck. It's more about the puzzle than it is the theme.
Yes.
So that's an interesting insight. Do you think there's knowledge that you either have in some of your like psychology background, things like that, that you do bring into the rooms that help you like sort of be ready to like frame the experience in a puzzly way so that you can be ready to start, working through the puzzles, things like that?
Mm, that's a good question. I feel like there's like two things at play, and one of which is like the synergy that you have with the other person or the group that you're with, and like how you, like my partner and I do not think the same way about things at all. And so there's things that he's easily like, I know what to do here. And I'm like, I never would have figured, like, I'm so glad I did not even see that part of the puzzle or know it even existed. And we just happened to get through the room together working on the things that we can intuit. I just have very, very clear certain blind spots that I always promise myself, like, oh, for the next time, if I ever see that, like, I'll remember that. And it's like, no, you won't. So, and then just the, like the order with which I think of how I'm going to do things. Like as soon as I get into the room and they're like, please watch this video, like I'm not watching your stupid video. I'm like collecting all the loose pieces. Like I'm throwing them in the middle of the room. Like I'm getting everybody to like put all the stuff in the middle. We'll figure out what the hell it is after. Like the story is a story, blah, 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 whatever. Um, or just even like noticing like stuff around the room, like with that, 2 minutes where they're playing video where you're like, okay, I see random letters here and random numbers there, and like it looks like that piece of the wall is loose, like we'll probably want to look into it or whatever. um so yeah, it's I like that it's like I have like a plan of how I'm gonna like try to like dismantle, what are the most like urgent and important things to address. But I guess it's like you also have to have like a strategy, but then also someone who determines like, okay, you work on that, I'll work on this, but let's not all six of us waste our time on one puzzle when there's 17 things to get done in the year.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of things there that I think are super, super important. So talking about different roles that people play within escape rooms, like I think everybody I talk to says the same thing. Like there's like a gatherer, there's a project manager, there's the communicator, or like, like just I forget what it was called. But anyway, everybody sort of has those things that they pick up on. But I think the interesting thing about that, and I think maybe one of your strengths coming from your actual work that you do, is seeing people's multiple perspectives and the value in that, rather than just be like, everybody look at it like this. It's like being able to hear and communicate your perspective, and hearing someone else's perspective is incredibly valuable in solving challenges. Especially, I think that's one reason why escape rooms always have some sort of team building component. They've got a corporate thing that you can sign up for, because there just are all those different roles and perspectives in puzzle solving, and most of what
Right.
we do day to day and any sort of work is going to be puzzle solving. So I think that's a really insightful thing to think about. It is just how being open to hearing other people's thoughts and opinions, and bringing your own thing to the table to get to a common goal is a really good way to be successful at escape rooms.
Yes, definitely. And I'm not going to pretend that I don't sometimes get frustrated or like lose my cool when I notice that like someone else is lagging on like a puzzle where I'm like, or I think the biggest thing that annoys me, like when my partner and I do them together, is he'll start to try to help me on the puzzle I'm on. And I'm like, please, like, there's so much more else to do. Like, just like go work on something else. Like, it's just, and reasonably, like I know that he's trying to use it as a form of connection, whereas I'm just like in that competitive zone where I'm like, if we don't finish this room, dinner is not going to be pleasant. But no, like I always get
Yeah.
over myself very quickly. So that's good.
Yeah, I think it's those shared experiences that are what makes the escape room industry, any immersive industry, really, so great. Is it takes us away from the small activities of like looking at our phone, or checking on those things. Like it allows
Yes.
us to really connect with other people, and I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this project, because bringing people together is so important to me. and what I value is that kind of community aspect. So like yeah, every time I talk about it, I'm telling someone, hey, go play an escape room. It's really fun. If you don't have somebody to play with, like call me. Like I'd love to go play one, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What, let's see. Uh, do you feel like in all of your experiences with escape rooms, is there uh is there like a gap that you see with how escape rooms handle customer service or customer experience, like the I guess like from the time you find their website to the time you like book your time to when you check in to when you go through the room, when you play, the follow-up experience, like what about that process do escape rooms miss that would be a benefit for them to put in place for players like you?
Definitely loyalty programs. Because like if I found so many missed opportunities that people like we gave really good feedback or we were like we loved it, like there's 6 other rooms you have, we would love to do it. And the best approach I've seen people do is like, okay, if you book your next escape room in the next 24 hours using this code, like you'll get 50% off. And but it's only within this 24 hours. So like they create the urgency of you utilizing that credit.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
appreciate that they understand like I will definitely I want to come back and I definitely will. And if you're incentivizing me, like I'll probably buy ahead every single time I come back here until I finish every single one of your rooms. Um, at the end, like you could just tell when somebody is like disengaged or like they're just like, all right, cool, bye. Like, like they're not interested in like retention of the business, or they're just kind of like, all right, like, or you ask like if you don't solve a puzzle and you're like they're like, oh, you were 2 puzzles away, and then you ask them like, hey, can you walk me through it? Like I really would love to know like what it is. I've had some of them be like, nope, you're just gonna have to come back and then try to figure out those last two. And it's like, you don't know. Like that is
Yeah.
not good business. Like that's not what I wanted. And now like I probably won't come back and play any of your other games either, just because if you're gonna like have me pay another $100 just because I didn't get to whatever. Or at the end they'll say like, oh, like you missed out on like 4 Easter eggs or something, and it's like, well, you would have like I didn't even know that I was trying to unlock like multiple levels of this ending. And they're like, oh yeah, there was like 3 separate different endings and you got this one and you could have gone like 10 puzzles further. But like I think that there needs to be like really good crystal clear expectations set in the beginning, um and then at the end like a really good solid like, was there anything that you noticed, like, or if like a puzzle doesn't go the way it's supposed to, or there's like tech issues and like you had to come in the room to like reset something, or um I found like I get the most frustrated when a game master is managing 3 rooms at a time, and so you could have wasted 15 minutes on one puzzle that you realize like they didn't notice, so they didn't tell you it was a red herring, or they didn't
Mm,
like help you move along, and so like you just don't win because they simply weren't paying attention to you. So um yeah, there's a lot of ways that they can uh like lose the ability to show that they care about their patrons. But I wonder sometimes too if the owners don't really see this as like a retention focused business. Like if they have 7 rooms and you do all 7, then like they're probably never going to see you again. So I don't know.
yeah, that makes sense. I've had family who worked in an escape room, so I have some sort of behind the scenes knowledge about how they operate, things like that. But do you think that's a like a an employee training opportunity or something like that? Like it's being in the customer service kind of mentality. It seems like that's one of those things where you're training someone who, maybe on the younger end, they don't have a lot of that customer service experience or whatever, so they might need some hand holding to say the right things. You're a Yelp elite person, so I imagine if they asked you, hey, like if you enjoyed your experience, I'd love you just to leave a review for us, like that seems like a great part of that exit is like, did you enjoy it? Like, my name is so and so, and please, like, write a review, all that kind of stuff. Like, do you get that a lot, or is that few and far between?
I think it definitely does depend on the expectations set for the game master. So if they weren't trained to ask for, the Google review, or, to make sure that their name was remembered, or even just to ask, like, is there anything that you feel like could have been improved? I feel like no one's ever asked me that. And I could
Mm,
give so many, like, ideas, or just
yeah.
like, and sometimes, like, there was one that I went to in Wisconsin. It was like Kenosha or something random. And the person had created the rooms from their own brilliant mind, but it was so reliant on their life experiences and the way that they interpreted the world that it wasn't intuitive for the masses. And
Mm,
so they were really proud of the fact that their room had like a very low solve rate, but I didn't actually think that that was a good thing, because
yeah.
you want people to have fun, you want them to feel like they're in on the on the story, I guess. And they were just it was just too niche, too like all over the place. Nothing really made sense with the other thing, and so yeah, it was just a bit of a mess. But yeah, is there like a formula that they could follow customer success wise at the end and at the beginning? Absolutely. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that they would get a lot more business. And even like if you refer your friend will get 20% off. Like I've never been offered that before.
Yeah,
I would I would
we're talking
I
about
would
that loyalty.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Um, I've seen some escape rooms that have um like swag that you can buy in the front of the store. Is that ever anything that you pick up if you like a room, you're like, "Ah, I want to take this memento."
because it's never been anything that's more than just like the escape room's logo and their like generic name of it's not like the theme of the room is on the shirt or the
Mhm.
so I personally haven't bought anything like that.
Okay. There was an escape room. There's an escape room here close to me that does like metal pins that are for like their theme for each of the rooms. So
Hmm.
like one is like a ghost themed subway experience. So like they're I don't have it here in front of me. Oh, I actually do. This it? Yeah. So this is one of their metal pins.
Oh,
It's like a Ghostbusters kind of a look and stuff. But I thought it was super cool because like that's now something that this was a graphic that was actually in the room. So it like helps jog my memory on that experience and like the stories that come out of that. So I
yeah,
thought that was clever. It was small enough where it wasn't like, oh, it's gonna be $50 that I need to spend additional, but
yeah,
it was an extra little bit that helped me connect my experience. And I feel like if escape rooms had some sort of standard of like,
yeah,
like here's the Batman pin, or yeah, I mean, obviously you'd have, like you said, you'd have probably 10 pirate ones and 15 prison ones and all that stuff. But I feel like there's like some sort of a takeaway that, maybe as a content piece that people could see who haven't been to that one, be like, that's cool. What's that? And it would kickstart a story or something.
yeah. I've frequently thought about that because it's like it doesn't come up frequently in conversations like how many escape rooms I've done. And if I had like a backpack with like 110 pins on it, like it would certainly be like a conversation starter, right? But
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like what would be like realistic enough that you could acquire so many and like like where else would you put it? It's not like you would like wear it all over like your on your shirts or like whatever. It's
Yeah.
like it's almost like you like how people collect coins and those like like
Yes. Yeah.
whatever. Like I wonder if
Yeah. It's almost like a secret society. I think there's I saw recently on a social media ad of some kind. There was like a national parks like keyring thing that had like little, when you go to them, there's like collectible like little things you can attach to it, so you can kind of carry around that experience. And
oh
like
cool.
something like that where there's like some sort of a collective of escape rooms who could offer some sort of big, wide ranging graphic thing like that. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. So when you're talking to friends and things like this, sharing those experiences, um, what do you feel like is, I guess, what are the things that you share with people most? Is it, the proximity, how close that place was to you? Was it like this, a really intriguing puzzle? Like, what is it about escape rooms that you tend to share amongst other people?
It's like the uniqueness of the puzzle and the fact that someone's amazing brain like even thought up that puzzle and then actually made it technically real. Like uh one of the rooms I did, you had an anvil and there was like a bird that was essentially like a laser light that would appear and
Mm.
sing a song, and then the anvil, whenever you moved it, you could play notes depending on if you raised it up, down, sideways, whatever. You had to twirl it, whatever. And so you had to recreate the song that the bird sang with the anvil, like swinging it around like a crazy person. I was like, thanks of these, like this is so genius. Like I just couldn't, or even it was oh my God, it was something like where like you had to like move a prism in such a way so a rainbow showed up and highlighted only certain letters that you had to use on a combination or whatever. It's like it just like who sat there and like can't like was like, what would be really cool, like if we just used like a prism, like what, like it's just so
Yeah.
cool. People sit around and have these ideas and then like actualize them.
Yeah, I think that's I've seen puzzles like that too, where I'm just blown away by the technical nature of them to actually create the thing, but also before you even get to that point, you have to come think about that thing and be like, I really want people to figure this thing out, and it's pretty impressive.
Yes.
I I mentioned that this is something like I'm just really doing to celebrate the community of escape rooms and the people who play them and build them. But you're involved in a nonprofit,
Yes.
which is focused on social impact. Do you think that there's things that the escape room industry could do to benefit the um, larger society in general? Do you have any ideas of things that they could get together and do collectively?
That's a great question. I feel like one of the ideas that popped into my head randomly was like if they partnered with like a foster care program and had teenagers like learn the skills of, because like to be a game master, like you need to be able to build rapport, you have to be able to troubleshoot in real time, you have to have like good decision quality and be able to make decisions very quickly on behalf of others. Um, you need business acumen because you have to like drive the recommendations and the referrals and things like that. So I think there's definitely a way to like hire for social impact and give those skills and training to, younger people. Because I mean, I maybe one time I ran into a game master who was over 30. So, and then I would say just like from the team building aspect, like if you have people who want to be taught conflict resolution, put them in a room and make them communicate with each other and especially under pressure, and when, watch how people get frustrated and then also like somehow tie it with conflict resolution skills, and how to communicate effectively when you're in a high pressure situation. Yeah, I mean, just even like it's typically like an escape room can make itself like a staple of the community. Uh, it's a welcoming environment. It's encouraging you to use pretty much all your senses, right? Because there's like sometimes where the puzzle is you have to like sniff 5 vials and like figure out which one is vanilla and which one's eucalyptus and blah 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 whatever. So yeah, I think there's so many ways that could probably be spun. Yeah.
That's I think that's actually the foster care one. I love that idea of training youth who could use that extra support and giving them those life skills. I think that's a really great idea. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like escape rooms offer such a wide variety of skill sets. You know, whether it's thinking of puzzles or solving them, either way, but building things, teamwork you mentioned, business skills, like all those things really come into play. So I think that's a really great idea. What with the ability to one thing I was kind of thinking about is escape rooms are obviously themed, in a ton of different ways, but something I was kind of thinking about was just increasing social awareness about different communities or things like that could be, the themes of the rooms themselves might be an opportunity to raise awareness about, different kinds of things without being overly political or anything like that. I think the ability to showcase different cultures and show, different ways of thinking. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to be very creative and be very very thoughtful of those things. uh,
Yes.
so I think that just the immersion, like again, I think that's one of the best ways to learn another culture is immersing yourself in that. So I
Yeah.
think I think that could be taken pretty to a pretty cool place as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if they had like a civil rights room or something like that, like I would be the first person to wanna, because it's like when
Yeah.
you like the characters that were, an important piece of history too, you could learn new vernacular for, vocabulary terms that like you never would have been aware of before. And it gives you like a perspective where you don't necessarily feel like you have a lesson being jammed down your throat, but at the same time, like you walk away more educated, more um aware of, just things beyond your normal scope of your day to day. There was one that I feel like it was Egyptian themed, and they brought in like the names of foods and like putting certain spices in a certain order or whatnot, and some things I had never even like heard of before. But it like even just that experience of like being immersed in that culture felt cool because you're like, oh wow, like I probably never would have known this. Like, yeah, of course Egypt is on my bucket list, but if God forbid I don't get there, like at least I got, a small piece of the culture, you know?
Yeah, I think that again, kind of going back to that multiple perspectives kind of thought process is like, you're getting that from the people who are in the room, but also being presented with a third sort of set, which would be the room itself, providing you its perspective and its viewpoint sort of on that theme is might be a way to open up, yeah, just an awareness of that thing, whatever it is, and may give you the ability to be like, I'm actually going to go home and look that up because it's kind of cool, like seeing that piece.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been super fun to kind of go through and talk about. I really value your perspective on your experience and the things that really I hadn't even thought of. So I appreciate you for sharing your story. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great talking.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I very rarely get to geek out about it as much as I would like. So welcome, always welcome an escape room chat. Thank you so much.